Hey Guardians, I just want to let everyone know that I do have both a Twitch and a Twitter, and I'm very active on both. Feel free to come give me a follow on both, links in the description. So, it's no secret if you've watched any of my streams or interacted with me in any way in Destiny that I'm not a fan of heavy burst hand cannons for PvP. They're PvE weapons, really. Like when Warden's Law first dropped, I ran some GMs with a couple of friends, and after we got decent enough PvP rolls, we excitedly took them into PvP to try them out. And the result was, after a few matches, I just outright deleted my PvP rolls. PvE was another story. While I unfortunately do not have the 4th times Vorpal roll yet, I do have a 4th times Frenzy roll, and it's awesome, one of the best PvE weapons in the game. Now, when Bold Endings dropped, obviously I was disappointed that it was a heavy burst. I genuinely thought it would be a 120, but after seeing the perk pool, I decided I would at least give it a chance in PvP, and I knew it would be good in PvE. Now, getting PvP out of the way first, here's the problem with these heavy burst hand cannons. They're just in an awkward spot as a whole. Heavy burst hand cannons are a solution looking for a problem. Their range is comparable to a 140, though with accurized rounds on Bold Endings, it can be a bit rangier than most 140s, but they still have an inferior TTK. They do have a comparable TTK to a 120 at slightly under 1 second, and if you have an Adept Warden's Law with a max range roll and an Adept range mod, you'll hit 37 meters, which is creeping into 120 range. But then you're losing stability, which is very important on these weapons, plus 120s flinch harder and have an easier time reaching those ranges. And on top of that, these 2-round burst hand cannons have some pretty odd recoil to them. They're not as easy to control as something like a pulse rifle. So pretty much everything a heavy burst hand cannon can do, a 140, 120, or just a pulse rifle will do better. In fact, being perfectly honest with you, I'm not even sure I'd rank these above 180s. Plus, with it being a burst fire weapon, you're losing that instant chunk damage that makes hand cannons so useful. So moving on, as far as PvP rolls go, the first thing I'll say is, much like a pulse rifle, stability is extremely important on these things, purely to reduce the overall amount of recoil here. So originally I tried polygonal rifling, though I do think that chambered compensator feels better if you're willing to take a hit to your handling. For your magazine, definitely go with steady rounds and then a stability masterwork. Now from there, in the third column, you have To the Pain, where receiving damage will increase your handling and aim assist, and this is a newer perk that I don't hate, but I'm not entirely sold on yet either. And of course, the other option here is Rapid Hit, and we all know how this perk works. Ironically, Rapid Hit is probably more helpful on this weapon than a normal hand cannon, since you can get 2 stacks per burst if you're landing your crits. Then in the fourth column, Moving Target, Golden Tricorn, Eye of the Storm, Desperate Measures. Now the first thing I'm going to say is this: given how much the base performance of heavy burst hand cannons struggle versus other weapons, I would pretty well disregard Tricorn and Desperate Measures for most players. There are literally hundreds of better options in this game for kill chaining. Stick with Eye of the Storm or Moving Target, since they'll help the weapon's base performance more. Now as far as combos go, the first one I tried was Rapid Hit and Eye of the Storm, both enhanced, since Enhanced Eye will give you stability when you take damage on top of its normal benefits. And this felt okay, I guess, better than what I was expecting given the archetype, but I still wasn't satisfied. So next, I tried a different route and maxed out the aim assist as much as possible with To the Pain and Moving Target. And this seemed to feel a little better, but again, I just wasn't happy with it. So of course, I tried Rapid Hit with Moving Target and To the Pain and Eye of the Storm. Of the two, Rapid Hit with Moving Target seemed to feel the best, but after playing with it for a while, I came to this conclusion: heavy burst hand cannons just suck in PvP, at least when compared to other hand cannons. Like I said, it doesn't do anything that other cannons won't do better. The only thing they really have going for them is they do have some intrinsic flinch resistance, but even then, the help it seems to give is limited, and it's pretty well negated the instant you have to fight a 120, ace, or literally any weapon with payload. But if nothing else, it is fun to use, and getting kills with it is satisfying, but would I take it into comp or trials? No. And to be honest, with SBMM 6v6, I'd be reluctant to even take it into control. Now, eventually, I was able to make this thing work, but I had to really juice this thing up. First off, the handling is awful, and so is the reload speed, and handling and reload mods can only help so much, so I had to really alter my playstyle and slow down how I play a lot. With range only slightly better than a 140 but with a worse TTK and vastly inferior range to a 120, I had to choose my engagements extremely carefully. I also threw on Lucky Pants to help the ready speed and boost my accuracy as well, and I also tried it with Knucklehead Radar for the wall hacks to help with peak shooting duels against normal hand cannons, and I even tried 1 or 2 matches with Mask of Bacchus for the free damage increase. So, can you make this weapon work? Yes, you can. Is it worth it? For most of you, probably not. Keep in mind, I gear these reviews for everyone. Obviously, a very high tier player could make these work. Now, if you really want to use a heavy burst hand cannon in PvP, you're probably better off just farming for a Warden's Law, given that it can roll with Moving Target and Zen Moment, and it can have access to Adept mods. But even then, like, just put on a 120. You'll have an easier time and you'll hate yourself less. These heavy burst hand cannons are toys and not much else. They're fun, but they're not super useful. I wouldn't take them into anything with stakes, and even then in Control or the CBMM playlist, an even half decent player with pretty much any other weapon is probably just going to farm you. So if you really want to take this thing into PvP for whatever reason, I'd recommend using this as an ambush weapon. Stick to flanking and use something like an Invis Hunter with Lucky Pants to help with your accuracy and ready speed, or maybe Knucklehead Radar because it is helpful with the wall hacks in case you get into a duel with another hand cannon. And choose your engagements very, very carefully. Check your ranges, so on and so forth. You get the idea. Now I want to specify too, this does not come from any sort of place of bias. I love hand cannons, they're my favorite weapons in Destiny, and hand cannon gunplay is a truly unique Destiny experience, and it's really one of the things that sets Destiny PvP apart from other shooters. So whenever I see a new hand cannon introduced, I'm rooting for it. I'm hoping it succeeds. I think heavy burst hand cannons are very cool in concept, they just don't serve any real purpose in PvP and still need some tuning to feel viable. So I do genuinely hope that one day Bungie can make these things feel better, and I gave this weapon every chance I could. I tried dozens of different exotic pairings, weapon rolls, so on and so forth. In fact, to be totally honest with you, I gave this thing way more of a chance than I would have most other weapons. If most other weapons performed like this weapon did, I would have just written them off after like the first 3 or 4 matches. So the reality is just this gun cannot hang like other weapons can. Now PvE is another story. Heavy burst hand cannons for sure have a place there, and so does bolt endings. Now your barrels, mags, and masterwork can stay pretty well the same here, though you may want to swap out steady rounds for a reload boosting magazine, and since you're not fighting human opponents, stability isn't as important, so you can lean more into range if you want. Though, to be honest, if you're playing PvE and you're in an activity where you need more than like 35 meters of range, it's probably time to pull out a scout or a pulse rifle. Now, in the third column, you have Strategist, which is a new perk that will give you class ability energy on kills, and you have Headstone, which always synergizes well with stasis-centered builds. Fourth column, Demolitionist, Desperate Measures, Dragonfly, Collective Action, and Golden Tricorn. So obviously the first combo that sticks out here is Headstone and Dragonfly, and this was the first combo I tried, and it does work. It's very potent, but I was disappointed. I was really hoping that Headstone and Dragonfly would synergize in such a way that the Dragonfly explosion would also blow up the Stasis Crystal for some big explosions, but unfortunately that is not the case. That's not to say it's a bad combo, because it isn't. It was just kind of disappointing. And I would really love to see this adjusted in the future so that Dragonfly will also blow up the Stasis Crystal, because that would be a very potent ad clear option. So that aside, you do have Demo, which is always great for grenade builds, and really any of the damage perks would do just fine for ad clear, though if that's what you want to roll with, then you may want to go with Rapid Hit for the faster reload speed. Though again, if you're on a stasis build or one centered around your class ability, then Headstone and Strategist are still good choices. Now the next note I want to bring up here is if you're a Lucky Pants Hunter, which is where I think these heavy burst hand cannons are probably the most popular, then I do still think you're probably better off with Warden's Law, since for Lucky Pants damage boost to work with bolt endings, you'll need to be on a stasis subclass or prismatic with the stasis super. And that's fine if you have a very heavy crowd control role, but if you're in endgame content and on Hunter, then you're probably on DPS duty, and Silence and Squall is just not a good DPS super. And to be honest, class, even if it were, it's really hard to choose that over Golden Gun and still hunt with Celestial Nighthawk. With Warden's Law being kinetic, it doesn't matter what subclass you're on, Lucky Pants will just give you the damage boost for free, and if you couple that with Frenzy, Kill Clip, or Rampage, you still have a very good ad clear weapon. And of course, outside of GMs, you can just swap between Lucky Pants and Celestial as needed. Plus, Fourth Times with Vorpal is fantastic for single target damage, and this combo's particularly nice this season with Hand Cannon Overload, or if you just want to make sure you have a good last-ditch DPS primary. But if you're not on another class and you're not using Sunshot for some reason, or if you're on a Stasis Hunter with Lucky Pants, then Bold Endings is still a good choice. And that's pretty much all I have to say on Bold Endings. This is like a D-tier PvP weapon if I'm being generous, but it's probably somewhere between A and B tier for PvE. Bold Endings is a very fun weapon, it just doesn't have the potency I was hoping for. That's all from me today, Guardians. If you enjoyed this video, then do me a favor and leave me a comment with your thoughts on Bold Endings, hit that like button, and don't forget to subscribe with the bell icon, and share this video with anyone who you think might find it helpful or entertaining. For now, I'll see you all in the next video. Peace, Guardians.